They say a change of scenery can be refreshing, a chance to escape the mundane, to live like a local in a new city, even if just for a weekend. The allure of an Airbnb is undeniable, a home away from home. But sometimes what you check into isn't just a house, it's a place with secrets, with a history that hasn't quite moved on. The previous occupants, they might still be there. Tonight, we'll explore 3 stories from travelers who booked a room, but ended up in a nightmare. Some homes are better left unvisited. Our first story comes from a user named Clara, who decided to treat herself to a solo retreat. She found what seemed like the perfect getaway, a quaint, secluded cabin nestled deep in the woods. The online photos showed a cozy fireplace, a rustic kitchen, and windows looking out onto a serene forest. The price was a steal, and the reviews, though sparse, were glowing. When she arrived, the air was crisp, and the silence of the woods was a welcome change from the city's constant hum. The cabin was just as advertised, charming and old-fashioned. As she unpacked, however, she noticed something not mentioned in the listing. A small, unassuming door at the end of the main hallway, secured with a heavy, rusted padlock. Curiosity piqued, she messaged the host, asking what was behind it. The reply was quick and simple. "Just storage. Please don't worry about it." But Clara couldn't help but worry. That night, as a storm raged outside, the power began to flicker. In the brief moments of darkness, she heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from behind the locked door. She tried to dismiss it as the wind or a stray animal, but the sound was too rhythmic, too deliberate. Later, she heard something else. A soft, muffled whisper, as if someone were speaking just on the other side of the wood. It was too indistinct to make out any words, but the tone sent a shiver down her spine. The next day, the unease was unbearable. She noticed the padlock on the door seemed different. The rust pattern was slightly altered as if it had been recently opened and closed. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She packed her bags in a frenzy, her eyes constantly darting back to the locked room. As she hurried out the front door, she swore she heard the distinct metallic click of a lock being undone from inside the house. She didn't look back. She just drove, leaving the secrets of that cabin locked away in the woods. She never found out what was in that room, and honestly, she doesn't want to. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Next, we journey to a quiet suburban neighborhood, a place you'd never associate with fear. This story is from a couple, Mark and Sarah, who were visiting family and needed a place to stay for a few nights. They found a listing for a spacious 2-story house. The host, an elderly woman named Eleanor, was incredibly sweet in her messages. She explained she'd be out of town visiting her sister, but would leave a key under the mat. The house was immaculate, filled with antique furniture and faded photographs. It felt lived in, comfortable. The first night passed without incident, but on the second night, things took a turn. Around 2 a.m., Sarah was woken by a sound from downstairs, the faint ringing of an old rotary phone. It rang 3 times, then stopped. She nudged Mark awake, but he mumbled that she was probably dreaming. A few minutes later, it rang again. This time, they both heard it. Mark went downstairs to investigate. The phone was sitting silently on its cradle in the living room. Chalking it up to a wiring issue in the old house, they tried to go back to sleep. But the feeling of being watched was palpable. Sarah kept staring at the curtains, convinced she saw a shadow moving behind the sheer fabric. Later that night, Mark went to the kitchen for a glass of water. As he passed the living room, he froze. For a split second, illuminated by the pale moonlight filtering through the window, he saw the silhouette of a woman sitting in the armchair, her back to him. He blinked, and she was gone. The chair was empty. They spent the rest of the night huddled in the bedroom, listening to the creaks and groans of the house, which now sounded less like an old building settling and more like footsteps pacing the halls. The next morning, they left before sunrise, sending a curt message to Eleanor that they were checking out early. They received a reply a few hours later. It read, "I'm so sorry you didn't enjoy your stay. My sister passed away 2 days ago, so I had to come home early. I hope I wasn't too loud when I came in last night." For our final story, we descend into a place most of us fear, even in our own homes: the basement. A young student named Leo was looking for a cheap, long-term rental while he attended university. He found an ad for a furnished basement apartment. The landlord, a quiet and reserved man, showed him the space. It was dark, a little damp, but it was spacious and, most importantly, affordable. Leo took it. The entrance was a separate door at the side of the house that led directly down a steep, narrow set of wooden stairs. The landlord explained that he and his wife were very private people and preferred if Leo did not use the main house. Leo was fine with that. He valued his own privacy. The first few weeks were normal. He'd hear the faint sounds of the couple moving around upstairs, the TV, the murmur of conversation. But then, he started hearing other noises. Late at night, when the house above was silent, he would hear a faint dragging sound. It seemed to come from the far end of the basement, beyond a locked door that the landlord had told him was a small utility closet. The sound was heavy, rhythmic. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. It sounded like chains, or perhaps something heavy being pulled across the concrete floor. He tried to ignore it, telling himself it was the house's old plumbing. But the sound was always followed by another, a low, guttural breathing. It was deep and ragged, like someone struggling for air. One night, the power went out. The basement was plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness. Leo fumbled for his phone, turning on the flashlight. He decided to investigate the utility closet, his curiosity overriding his fear. As he approached, he noticed something strange. A dark, thick liquid was seeping from under the locked door. His blood ran cold. The dragging sound started again, only this time it was louder, closer. It was on the other side of the door, and then the breathing, heavy, wet, and right there. Suddenly, he heard a loud bang from upstairs, followed by the landlord's muffled shouting. The dragging stopped. The breathing ceased. A moment later, his power flickered back on. Leo didn't wait to find out what was happening. He grabbed his wallet and keys and ran up the stairs, not stopping until he was miles away. He never went back for his things. He still has nightmares about the breathing, about what or who was kept as the other basement guest. The world is full of doors. Behind each one lies a new space, a new experience. But as these stories show, you never truly know what you're stepping into when you cross that threshold. The comfort of a stranger's home can quickly become a prison of fear. Real horror never sleeps. The question is, after hearing this, would you dare book again? Thank you for joining us in the Midnight Verse. If you have a story you'd like to share, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another journey into the dark. Until next time, stay safe.